Golden Sound Story, Disney's Pocahontas. The sails of the English sailing ship, the Susan Constant, billowed in the wind. As the ship neared the shores of the New World, Captain John Smith quickly climbed to the crow's nest to get a better view. On the ship's deck, Governor John Ratcliffe wrung his hands together greedily. Ratcliffe was leading an expedition to claim the new land and its riches for England's King James. Ratcliffe was counting on his crew to find gold in the New World so the king would reward him. As the governor dreamed greedily, the wind carried the Susan Constant into the mouth of a wide river. Don't miss a beat. Just around the river bend, not far from the river's edge, an Indian tribe cheered. Their warriors returned from battle. Powhatan, the tribe's chief, stood before his people and praised the warrior Cocoam for his bravery in battle. As the people cheered, the chief's daughter, Pocahontas, hurried to welcome her father home. By her side, her animal friends, Flit the hummingbird and Meeko the raccoon, chattered. In their long house, Powhatan eagerly told Pocahontas that Cocoam had asked her to marry her. "Marry Cocoam," Pocahontas protested, "but he's so serious." Meeko chattered his disapproval. "Cocoam will make a fine husband," Powhatan said. "It is time to take your place among our people. Don't miss a beat." Troubled by her father's words, Pocahontas walked to the river with Flit and Meeko chattering behind her. She climbed into a canoe and paddled. To her secret place, the enchanted glade. There she stepped from the canoe and curled up in the shade of an ancient willow tree. "Is that Pocahontas?" the tree chuckled. "Oh, Grandmother Willow," Pocahontas sighed and told the tree of her father's plans. "My father thinks I should marry Cocoam, but I'm not sure. What is my path?" Again, Grandmother Willow chuckled. "To find your path, you must listen with your heart," she said. Just then, Pocahontas heard the wind. Looking up, she saw what looked like a strange billowing cloud set off to investigate. The clouds Pocahontas had spotted were the sails of Susan Constant. As the ship floated into the river, Governor Ratcliffe eyed the land greedily. "Do you think we'll see savages, Wiggins?" the governor's servant giggled. Ratcliffe frowned at his giggling servant and ordered Captain Smith to send the crew ashore. "And if you find any savages," Ratcliffe sneered, "make sure they don't disrupt our mission." Meanwhile, on shore, Powhatan's men had spotted the English settlers. The warriors crept back to the village to tell Powhatan about the strangers. At once, Powhatan sent Cocoam and some of the other braves to watch the intruders. When the settlers reached shore, Ratcliffe ordered them to begin digging for gold. Smith alone set off to explore. As he walked through the forest, he sensed that someone was creeping along behind him. Quickly, he ducked behind a waterfall. When he stepped back out, he came face to face with Pocahontas. Smith stared at the beautiful girl. She stared back. For a time, the rushing water and wind were only sounds. Then cautiously they began to talk. Smith told Pocahontas that the settlers had come to civilize the Indians with their roads and cities. Pocahontas was offended by Smith's words. She explained that living in harmony with nature was her people's way of being civilized. Slowly, Smith began to understand. After that, Pocahontas and Smith spent a lot of time together. While Pocahontas and Smith talked, the settlers continued digging, and the warriors continued watching. One day, Ratcliffe spotted the warrior. "Savages," he bellowed. "It's an ambush." "Oh, a battle," Wiggins giggled as he struggled with his armor. The settlers opened fire, and the braves answered them with swift arrows. When one of the braves, Namontack, was wounded, Cocoam carried him back to the village. Chief Powhatan knelt by the wounded Namontack. "First they destroyed our land, and now this," he cried. "We will fight this enemy." Then Powhatan forbade anyone to go near the white men. The warriors cheered as they prepared for battle. Pocahontas' heart ached when she learned her people were at war with the settlers. She was in love with Smith, and despite Powhatan's orders, wanted to see him again. That very night she crept away to take Smith to the enchanted glade. "He has a good soul," Grandmother Willow said with a chuckle. When she met John Smith, "It appears you found your path, Pocahontas." Pocahontas' joy turned to sadness when Cocoam stepped out of the bushes. The brave warrior, worried about Pocahontas, had followed her. Now seeing Smith holding her, Cocoam attacked. And at the same time, Thomas, a young sailor who had been told to follow Smith, raised his musket and fired. As Cocoam fell dead, the glade filled a cold wind. Hearing the gunshot, warriors poured into the glade. "Run, Thomas, run!" Smith cried, and the young man raced back to camp with the news of Smith's capture. Immediately, Ratcliffe declared war on the Indians. Once at war, he thought greedily he could kill Powhatan's people, claim their riches for himself. Meanwhile, the braves returned to the village with Smith, Pocahontas, and Cocoam's body. Powhatan listened to their story and ordered Smith to be put to death at sunrise. Sad and confused, Pocahontas paddled back to her Grandma Willow for advice. "I was wrong, Grandmother Willow. I followed your path. I don't know which way to turn anymore." Grandmother Willow chuckled. "You know your path, child. Now follow it." Filled with Grandmother Willow's words, Pocahontas paddled to the plateau where her people had gathered. Just then the settlers burst from the trees, ready to open fire, and Powhatan raised the club over John Smith. Suddenly, Pocahontas' heart told her what to do. "No," she shouted, flinging herself over Smith. "If you kill him, you will have to kill me too." Everything fell silent. "Daughter, stand back," Powhatan commanded. "I won't," Pocahontas cried. "Look around you. This is where the path of hatred has brought us." Powhatan looked up to see the settlers with guns raised and warriors with bows drawn. "This is the path I choose, father," she said. "What will yours be?" Her words rang in Powhatan's ears above the cry of the wind. Every eye was on Powhatan. Slowly he spoke. "My daughter speaks with courage and understanding. From this day forward, it will be there. If there is to be more killing, it will not start with me." Then he released Smith. Hearing this, both the settlers and the warriors dropped their weapons. Only Ratcliffe was furious as his dreams of fame and fortune faded. "It's a trick! Fire!" he shouted, filled with greed. He grabbed a musket and aimed at Powhatan. "No!" shouted Smith, leaping up to protect the chief. A shot rang out from Ratcliffe's gun, hitting Smith instead of Powhatan. John Smith dropped to the ground, badly wounded. The settlers, enraged by Ratcliffe's action, surrounded the governor and arrested him. They assured Powhatan that no one else would fire. As Pocahontas cradled the injured Smith in her arms, Thomas knelt next to her and told her the only way to save him was to take him back to England. Pocahontas' heart sank, but she understood. When the Susan Constant was ready to sail, Pocahontas went to see Smith one last time, with Filth and Miko chattering about. Pocahontas and Smith said goodbye. As they spoke, they saw settlers and Indians working together. They smiled, knowing that they had brought understanding to their people. "I can't leave you," Smith whispered to Pocahontas. "You never will. I will always be with you," she smiled through tears as the settlers came for Smith. They hoisted him into a boat and paddled out to the Susan Constance. From shore, Pocahontas and Chief Powhatan watched the white sails unfurling as the Susan Constance set sail for home. Trying to keep the departing ship in sight, Pocahontas raced up to a high rocky point. As she waved farewell to John Smith, her heart prayed that she would someday see him again.